I've had a couple of situations recently where people didn't have beneficiaries listed on certain assets and things along those lines, and it became a real problem. The biggest issue, and most people don't realize, is that they're not here after they pass away, and if they don't take certain steps to just organize their world before they pass on, the people left behind, the spouses, the other family members, and so on, are left having to deal with sometimes a little bit of a mess. It's unfortunate. Recently had a client pass away, a young gentleman, 58 years old, had a business, he was divorced, didn't have kids, had some brothers and sisters, had a small business with some retirement accounts and things along those lines, and no will. After the divorce, he delayed issuing the beneficiary designations on the accounts. So now it's, everything's subject to taxation in the retirement accounts. It's a real mess. So a lot of people, tend to delay these things, and, it's unfortunate. They really need to get organized at the front end. One of the first steps I always try to recommend to people is, first of all, just take an inventory of your assets. And you can do some very simple estate planning just by simply changing the titling on certain accounts, like bank accounts or investment accounts, things along those lines, and see how they're owned, the assets that you're listing. Is it jointly with a spouse with rights of survivorship or someone else? All of these will have direct beneficiaries that would inherit the assets should you pass away, and it will not be held up by probate or anything along those lines. Another option, obviously, is to have a will. But, those are for mainly your hard assets, like a home and things along those lines, or investment or savings accounts. When you have retirement accounts, it's a little bit different, and this is where a lot of people get hung up on it. I've had situations personally in my family where someone did not name a beneficiary on their account. And it was unfortunate, because what happens is when money gets left to an estate of someone from a retirement plan, let's say a 401k, IRA, 403b, whatever it is, it becomes immediately taxable. And if it's a large account, it could lose a lot of money. I was mentioning it happened to my family earlier. My brother-in-law passed away a couple of years ago, a young guy, late 50s. He worked at a hospital, had no spouse, had no kids. He had a 403b account though, and it had a couple of $100,000 in the account, but no beneficiary designation. So when he passed away, by law, that money transfers down to my mother-in-law. And at the time, she was in a nursing home, and she was going through certain planning to minimize her assets. She was going through what's called a spend down. And what ultimately happened was this money became hers now. First of all, 40% of it was lost on the $200,000. So now you're sitting there with $120,000. And because we were going through the spend down of her assets for her nursing home care, it disqualified her from Medicaid. So we had to spend down the remaining $120,000 for her care needs, which was fine. But at the end of the day, had he simply named someone, he had a brother and two other sisters, or even if he named the mom directly as the beneficiary, that would have avoided all the problems, and we could have done some tax planning and preserved those assets. Should she have needed it, we could have distributed money as needed, things along those lines. Designating a beneficiary on retirement accounts is probably the biggest thing that I recommend to people that they really focus on.